Good morning, everybody. So last night I made a video which was is going to Berklee College of Music worth it? And it came off a little bit dull, but then again, I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm just trying to speak my reality, whatever that is, at any given time. Okay. So if your takeaway from last night's video was boy, this guy seems really unexcited about music school. It was very late and I'd been working for 10 hours. So, hence the dullness. Sorry, everybody. Now that I'm a little bit more well rested, I can expound a little bit on what I was talking about in hopefully a more colorful way. For me, going to Berklee was a real self directed, self focused experience. In other words, a lot of musicians who go to Berklee have very different experiences. In fact, I think one of the great things about the school is that the experience you have at Berklee is entirely different than what somebody else is having all at the same time. And I don't mean to sound obtuse, like, of course, we're all having different experiences, but your musical journey there can kind of be a encapsulated experience. And that's the one thing I sort of wanted to talk specifically about. I think it's really important when you're there to find your focus as quickly as you can. And I think one of the big problems with many art programs is the students who are going into the art program, some are very, very focused. And I think the thing about Berklee that makes it very interesting is it's kind of wrapped in this informality. And I think that is because it's a school about contemporary music. So there's this sort of false sense of, uh, I don't want to say insincerity because that's the wrong word, but there's a more laid back approach. At least it seemed that way to me. You know, it's not stuffy like a music conservatory is, and I really really love that about the school, and I've always liked that about the Berklee culture. Um, but a lot of students who aren't necessarily that serious about music who go to Berklee, and I think it's less so the situation now. I think Berklee's doing a much better job at vetting students than they had been doing when I was there. When I was there, virtually anybody who could go would go, and they'd figure out during the first year of music school that music wasn't just hanging out in a band. It was a lot of things. It was a lot of rigorous study, and so people would drop out. And I remember the first year, nobody was left. I had gotten to know a few people, and they didn't last. They didn't make it through it. And I'll run into people from time to time who say, "Yeah, I went to Berklee for a semester or two." And there's a guy that I work with at the university that I teach at. He went for one semester and he just realized that it wasn't his cup of tea. And I think that's an important thing to understand about the school is extremely focused on what its task is, which is to educate and to help musicians develop or to develop them into modern contemporary musical beings. I know that's a little bit um, overly trying to find words here. The coffee hasn't kicked in yet. When it does, this will become more coherent. Uh, I think it's just one of those things where your experience at the school is what you make it. That's what I really want to say. So I was the not excited, very ambivalent, I'm going to Berklee student. And the not excited, very ambivalent Berklee student is somebody who has had some sort of musical career, which I had had prior to that. So I've been playing music for 21 years at a pretty high level. It started very young. And my issue with music programs, and this is something I loved about Berklee. Most music programs are sort of geared toward the more esoteric aspects of music that have nothing to do with the music industry as it is now. And Berklee's existence is an attempt to redress that issue by providing students with a really high quality contemporary music education. And of course, the blowback from, I think, the more traditional conservatories would be, well, it's not, you're not studying Walter Piston, and you're not constantly, being made to play Hanon scales, and you're not, you're not in this very rigorous sort of classical, almost 18th century musical environment. And that's the thing I loved about Berklee. I could be all of those things at Berklee, but then I could also be a more contemporary version of that, and nobody had a problem with that. So if I wanted to, for example, take my clarinet, go to the synth lab, record stuff into the sampler, and then manipulate it, people were totally fine with that. And that's a really cool thing. If you think about that for a minute, that's a really, really cool thing. And so when I'm teaching music now, because I'm a music professor, I like that contemporary element, because it's what's brought me into this industry, and it's made me more relevant as an artist versus what I was before I went to Berklee. So I think there's sort of this, and I know I'm kind of rambling here, but I think there's sort of a focus that you need to really bring to your education. And I would strongly encourage people who want to go to Berklee to visit the school. It's so important. Even if you're an online student at Berklee, go visit the school. Understand the culture of what you're getting into, because I think that's a really important element of any institution. And I remember the first time I went off to school, I didn't go on a college tour. I just went to a school that offered me a scholarship. And then once I got there, I realized, well, this is the wrong institution. And that school was Ohio Wesleyan University. It's a perfectly good school, but the music department wasn't a good fit for me. So, I then went back to my hometown, Cleveland. Cleveland State University had an awesome, awesome music program. Far better than what was being offered at Ohio Wesleyan. And it was an amazing music school. It was an amazing music program. Top quality, top tier. I had one of the best teachers in the world that I was studying with. But then I discovered I didn't want to be a symphonic musician. So that then opened another door of uncertainty. Like, I want to get a college degree, but is it going to even be in music? And that's where Berklee filled that specific sort of gap. And I wanted to kind of end this video on a positive note, and a more certain note, because the last video was about the ambiguity of studying at a university, art education in general. And that may have left some of you scratching your heads going, why did he even make that video? So this video, I hope, is an attempt to redress that, just to give you a little bit better of an understanding of, is Berklee worth it? Yes, Berklee is worth it. How you pay for it, that's a whole different issue. But for me, Berklee, completely worth it. Glad I attended. And for anybody who's gone to Berklee, I'm very curious as to what your experience was while you were there. If anybody who's considering Berklee, if you want more information, just send me a comment, and I'd be more than happy to chat with you over Zoom about it. Or if you're having issues about needing advice about music schools and which one you should go to, I'm more than happy to help out with that. So just consider this a bit of a resource, and I hope you are all doing well. Like and or subscribe. I always enjoy it when people stick around on the channel, because it motivates me to do more work. Have a great day.